Welcome back to 4AZ. I'm your host, Tyler McDowell Blanken, and I'm excited to bring you the story of another fantastic educator in our Grand Canyon state. She's making a difference for students every single day. She is Lizz Denneau. Liz and I worked at the same high school. She's a visual arts teacher with many passions. What I admire most about Liz is how real she is. I've seen firsthand how she's able to connect with students and create a vibrant, safe classroom community. She discusses her experience growing up in Tucson, her love of fashion, teaching strategies, and much more. If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to like this video, leave a review, follow us on social media and your audio platform of choice, and share it with a friend. To everyone who has taken the time to check out this season, thank you. Your love, your support, your eyes, your ears, it truly means so much to me. All right, it's time. Here is Wear the Crown, a conversation with Lizz Denneau. She's an artist, Tucsonan, and of course, an outstanding teacher. I'm honored to introduce my homie, my sis, Lizz Denneau. Liz, I haven't seen you in so long. How you been?
I know, it's been a minute.
It's been a minute. It's been an hour and
Yeah.
then some.
Yeah,
How are you?
I'm good. Just, enjoying the summer. Although I got COVID for like a week and a half. Like I originally got COVID when COVID happened, but I had been avoiding getting like the new variants, but it took me out, man. I'm still kind of tired.
Jeez. Yeah, I didn't know if you were going to let me divulge that, but I know we were scheduling this interview, and I'm so grateful because you were like, listen, yo, I'm on the mend, but it's a yes. I'm going to make my appearance. Let me just recover, and then I'll be there. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better. I hope you make a full recovery very soon, and I'm excited for you to share your story today. So I want to get right into it. You grew up in Tucson. I want to know, how was your experience as a K through 12 student?
Ooh, okay. Let me try to find this condensed version. It's not good. I grew up in Tucson. I grew up in poverty, but we also moved around a lot. So I went to 8 or 9 different schools. And I lived in every hood in this city. And yeah, so in moving so many times and going to different schools so many times, it's easy to get lost. But also it was the 90s. So the 90s were kind of a messed up time for education. You're in the height of colorblind, like kind of rhetoric. When I was in high school, I was living on my own for a period of time and going through a really hard time. And I did have some teachers that made a difference. One of them was my drama teacher, and like many kids that had a lot of issues, I had a tendency to like get really upset and like just walk out of places. Like I just realized it's a trait I still have. I'm like,
On the show.
you're wasting my time. Bye. Get him out. No. So I remember the day I walked out of her class, she chased me down and like yelled at me and was like, you don't leave my class. Like, you don't just to get to walk out of here. And we got into this conversation, and I think she suspected some stuff was going on, but then it was like more confirmed, and kind of took me under her wing, but also everybody in that class really under her wing. And so she was kind of a person that made me think that teaching was like a really important job, not just because we're creating the jobs of America, but that it's morally a noble job to have to reach kids at, those ages and stuff. So, um, that was a big turning point in education. I was not a good student. I mean, I was a smart student and I had a lot of teachers who knew I was smart, but knew that I was going through stuff. And they're the reasons why I graduated. Like, I'm pretty sure my government teacher was like, "You're too smart to stay here, but you didn't earn this grade. I'm still going to gas you." So,
Wow. But it was never a matter of if you were capable or
no,
not. It was simply
no,
managing everything you had going on. And it sounds like,
yes,
homework, quizzes, it wasn't always your top priority. It's not the top priority for a
no,
lot of our students, as we know.
no, it's not. And so, I have, unless I don't see a senior all year, like I don't know, it's like a Kiki Palmer, I don't know this man thing. Like, I know, like I don't know this kid. I'm sorry to this kid. I don't know this kid. Those kids that never show up, they're always on your roster. I'm not gonna, if a senior is coming to class even a couple of times a quarter and still trying, I'm never gonna fail a senior. I just don't think that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I am an art teacher, not a math teacher. So
I was going to
that,
say, we need to get into your bio, Liz. Art teacher, outstanding art teacher at Tucson High,
yeah,
home of the Badgers.
the
We
batch.
met at Marana. So we're going to get
Yeah,
into all this. I just want to make sure people know how legit you are, and you are a Tucson Badger as of this recording. So let's again sort of kind of stay in the chronological tip here. You were recently recognized by the Western States Arts Federation. Big congratulations to you
thank
on that.
you.
I'm so proud of you. So, sticking with your childhood, I know you would cut up clothes and craft your designs as a kid, much to your mother's dismay. So I
Yes.
hear. But when when did you know that you wanted to pursue art as a career?
It's interesting because the art teacher that I had in high school was my mother's art teacher, and my mother is a great artist as well. And we did not vibe at all, me and this guy. And I think he expected me to be a similar artist to my mom, which were very different. Um, and so I leaned more towards drama. I stopped going to art class and just went to drama. And so that was like my fine arts, but I always drew and painted. It was a source of escape for me, of, way to like um, express myself. But I don't think I really got into like art as a profession until I started doing fashion design. And that was later in my early 20s. I started doing fashion shows with some friends, and we would do
You were at Pima at
I
that
was
time,
at
right?
Pima. Yeah, so
Okay.
I learned how to sew from my mom and my grandmother, but at one point I was like, well, if I'm going to make actual clothes, I probably should learn how to do this correctly. So I went to Pima, and
Shout out to
there's
Pima. I was a student
yeah,
there once
shout
as
out to
well.
Pima.
Yes.
There was an amazing woman, Georgianne Fimbris. I don't know if she's still here or there. I think she might have moved on, but she taught me how to make patterns and all of these wonderful things. And while I was in school and working, I was also doing fashion shows statewide. And I had a clothing line, which then developed into something much bigger. And so I think that was my kind of entry point into visual arts. I never really looked at fashion as a commercial, um, a commercial venture. I really was coming from a place of visual, um, yeah, visual art. Like I was literally painting on clothes and things like that. So,
Wow.
and that
And
became
was that particularly trendy at the time? I feel like you strike me as you've always kind of focused on what you want to do. Like you're not concerned about the trends or fitting in with what's popping at the moment. You're your own person. You're Liz.
Yeah, I don't know if it was trending. I mean, I think there were some things that I did that I think are more trendy now. Like I could say that I was a little uh ahead of my time in that way, if I can say that about myself and not sound completely.
Nah, come on,
But
we're here to give you your flowers. Let's go. Liz is ahead of
but
her time.
yeah, but I also, so again, I also was very interested in the human side of fashion design and what fashion could do for a person growing up without anything, and like really not having school clothes. I would redesign stuff, or occasionally an adult would like buy me school clothes um, out of the goodness of their heart, but like adults don't know what teenagers want to buy. And I've always been a big girl, right? So I've always been in this larger body. And so it's like you end up looking like the only like corporate casual 13-year-old going. It's
She's
just
ready,
you get these like weird
ready to take on the
like
world.
sweater sets and stuff. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
Goldman
would
Sachs intern.
yeah, I would rip that apart. So my clothing line was a size extra small to a 4XL. Like I did, and that's a lot of patterns. If you know anything about making slopers and stuff, it's a lot. So
Very inclusive.
um yeah, so there was a whole thing about like body acceptance that I was and during that time the body positive movement was just starting to take off, and I had some friends who were at the forefront of it, and they were really responsible for helping me, get as far as I did with my clothing line.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. I'm glad you had that sense of community even back then in fashion, because we're going to
Yeah.
talk about community in education very soon. But Liz, first, tell us about your journey to the classroom. So funny enough, as I alluded to, first met years ago, even before Marana High School. I recall that both of us spent time at Flowing Wells. We didn't know each other back then formally, but I
No?
want to hear we want to hear about the origin story of Miss Denneau, the teacher.
Well, when I've had many jobs, but when I was working in behavioral health and group homes, um me myself and this other guy decided we want to do art classes. There was like a community room, so we started doing art classes there. The kids liked them. And then I was like, oh, this is important. So I went and helped out. There used to be an all ages club here called Scrappies that was youth centered. Started out as a punk rock club. It kind of ended more like b-boy. Like every generation brought something else there, but I ran an arts program through that while I was doing all this other stuff. Once I like had spent about a decade making clothes, even probably at like if I would have kept pushing, I probably would have been okay. But I got tired. There's no industry to make commercial clothing here in Arizona. So like I was sewing everything. I also had interns, so I've always had like students or proteges, and so it was just us doing these massive orders, and I realized I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. Previously, I had worked at a charter school, teaching like some art classes and doing some advisory stuff. It was and office work, So I was used to. This school was a little different because there's only like 75 kids there. But I was like, well, maybe
You were versatile. They had you
yeah,
they had you everywhere.
it was all over
Okay,
the. You
I
know
didn't
how
know that.
teachers do? They're like, "Can you do this? Can you do?"
Yes, yes,
Uh,
I can.
yeah, yes, I can. Um, so I was like, there was a job at Flowing Wells, which is my alma mater, and
Go
it
Cavs.
was like
Great
an
place.
administration and assistant job to the assistant principal, who I knew from when back in the day, and yeah, so applied for it and got it. And then I spent like 2 or 3 years working in this very tiny HR office watching the art room was actually right next to, because if you know anything about Flowing Wells, their district office is on the high school campus. So the art room was like right there. And also there was a fashion design room that was there was a pretty awesome program going
Yeah,
on.
fashion program is big.
Yeah, it's really
Prince Road.
Yeah. And so, I would go over and visit I knew the fashion design teacher, and I just had this feeling. I would watch the kids and I would be like, I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm just in the wrong place. And eventually I was like I mentioned before when we were talking, I did not want to go back to school to get a 4-year degree. I had my general education requirements done from PIMA. Not completely though. And I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do it. My husband was supportive. And when I figured out that I could do this like in 2 years, I was like, okay, cool. Because I had done some stints at PIMA, many stints at PIMA.
And that cut it in half. You thought it was going to be a 4-year journey.
Yeah, I thought.
And you said, no, I'm not
doing that.
But 2 years,
2
that's
years.
worth it, because I'm in the place I want to be at.
Yes.
I'm just, like you said, not in the specific role that I think is going to,
that's going to be fulfilling for me. Yeah, I'm not an office person. I have learned that.
You're not. No.
I'm not an office gal. So yeah, I went to PIMA. I was working full time at the district and going full time to PIMA to finish up my gen eds for the final year. And then I transferred to the U of A and like just knocked out as many credits a semester as possible. I think I even did some summer school. And then I got that degree, and then poof, I ended up at Marana High School.
At Marana High School. That is, that's such a cool journey. So this leads perfectly into my next question for you. How was your first year of teaching at Marana?
I think so. I'll be honest. My experience in Marana was not great. But it was very. Yeah, no, I'm fine being open and honest about it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't great, but it wasn't awful either. Like there were I had some colleagues like yourself. The ceramics teacher there, that was at the time, the only other art teacher. And then we got like another one. There were some good people there, but the environment was really bad. And I think it became more apparent with the pandemic. But my first year there, what I realized is I was inheriting a class that was like kind of dying a little bit. Like a lot of the upper division art classes had been combined. These kids had never gone off campus. Like they never went to a museum. They never did any of those things. Because Marana is a conservative leaning city. So technically it's a city. There wasn't a lot of emphasis on culturally responsive teaching or decentering the Western European canon, which is what I am about, right? Like I want students to see themselves reflected in the greater art world. So the first thing I did there, I found out that this exhibition called 30 Americans was coming to TMA, which was huge. And I used my connections. I always use my community connections for my students. I want them to see what artists, museum curators, all of these people are doing in the world. I want them to know that their world is bigger than what they think they're seeing. And also to like see somebody and they go to that museum and they know that person, and I don't know, maybe they get a job down the road. Who knows? Like
who knows?
A lot of things happen. So we went to see 30 Americans, If you know about 30 Americans, it is a Rubel family collection. It is 30 contemporary Black American artists. And we're talking about like heavy hitters like Basquiat, Kehinde Wiley, Glenn Ligon, Kara Walker. All of those people were in the Tucson Museum of Art. And I was like, my students are going here. So we
I'm gonna
made
fill out a bus form. I'm gonna do permissions,
like,
whatever I need to do. I'm gonna
right.
get them off this campus to
And we're gonna
experience.
go. Yeah. And it was interesting listening to them talk, because for a lot of them, like they just, and we see this everywhere, really. They just didn't leave Marana. So like coming to Tucson was a big deal for some of them. It was like, you know, they're coming to the big city, the big scary city. And I was like, nah, but yeah, okay. So,
Welcome to my city.
So I spent that first year building a program. And when I started, I had 5 AP students, and it was a combined class. I had 3 classes in one. That was crazy. And then by my next year, I had 24 AP students in my, I had it was as its own class. I had doubled all of my classes, and yeah, I built a program. I was, you know, proud of what I was doing there, for
That's
sure.
beautiful. And I say I have so much reverence for you as a teacher, not just because you're my homie and I really like you, but we, as this goes, teachers know you share kids in common, and we've had a few kids over the years, and I know how happy your class made them, and I would see their work that they would carry, and it was just always so professional and creative, and you are just fantastic at what you do. So, at what point could you feel that you became a great teacher? You obviously had vast experience in the art world. You were familiar with working in the community and working with youth. At what point did it click for you? I know for myself, Liz, by year 3, I finally felt as though, okay, I think I know what I'm doing. I have some confidence. I can sort of improvise if needed, if the Wi-Fi is down or this isn't working. So we know that Miranda Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So for me, it was year 3 where it really started to click in. What was that process like for you? Again, you spoke about your first year teaching. At what point did you feel as though I got this? Was it relatively quick? Did it take some time to build those skills?
I think I came in pretty confident. In the art education program, because the thing that has built my confidence around particularly teenagers. People tend to be afraid of teenagers. I'm not afraid of them. I think they're hilarious. But yeah, I worked in group homes. I worked in houses with you know, kids on parole. Like, I've seen some things. There's very little that surprises me. Like, and a lot of the stuff that kids do on a high school campus is not that shocking or nuanced or anything. I'm like, okay, guys. Like,
They're teenagers.
yeah, they're
Not a lot of
teenagers.
nuance present.
Yeah, no, they're just like that whole frontal lobe, right? So
Right.
like,
It's growing. It's developing.
yeah, so I came in pretty confident. I had to, because like I came in with a pedagogy of social justice, knowing where I was going. Marana being a conservative district, I knew what I wanted to teach, and within the art education world, there's been a paradigm shift from what we used to call discipline-based arts, which is more based on technique. It's also kind of based on school art and some like kind of iffy appropriation of other cultures. Like, it's not great. It was developed in the cuddler blind 90s. And it's shifted to arts and visual culture education, which is a much more broader, more nuanced, more inclusive, and also with a very big focus on contemporary methodologies versus this like classical art, right? Every kid that I talk to when I first meet them, who's your favorite artist? Van Gogh. You know, I might get a Frida, I
Good old
might get
Vincent.
a
Frida,
Picasso,
yes. Uh-huh.
you know,
Those are the
but
heavy
like
hitters.
that's it. Like those
Yeah.
are the three hitters. Like, it's like
Not even Basquiat typically on that
no.
list.
I mean, I think these Basquiat has now become like kind of part of the zeitgeist, and as
Mm.
far as like, so I think more kids know him.
Yeah, you can buy his
Um
clothes at Target.
yeah.
You better
Well,
believe
and they
I
also
got that
don't,
hoodie back in the
yeah.
day, Liz.
They
Right
don't,
off
they
of
also,
Super
they're
Target.
wearing like Keith Haring t-shirts and they don't know it. Like they don't.
The game's
So
changed. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of, it's interesting. But anyway, so yeah, I came in with some confidence. Maybe it was like fake it till you make it confidence, but
Listen, I'm not mad at that. Whatever we got to do to get by and continue
right.
swimming upstream. I said year 3. I'm getting major. Yo, dog, I had this instantly. Like,
Yeah,
I knew what I was doing. Not afraid of teenagers. I'm passionate about my content, and clearly you soared. And like you said, really not only just got by, but you did way more than that. You built a program.
right.
It's
I
incredible.
don't think though that um I don't think I fully became like the teacher that I am, and have the confidence that I am as like fully as a teacher, not just in teaching or building relationships, but as how I fit in this great ecosystem of Tucson High or whatever school you're at, right? Like all the other teachers and admin, and like what's important to you. Um how to say no. None of that came about really until I left Marana. Like, so I would say, well, maybe a little bit before I left Marana. So yeah, I'd say year 3 or 4. And really that was brought on by the pandemic, and it was brought on by a lot of really traumatizing things that had happened. And I realized, oh, no, like you don't have to give 150%. You could do 80 and you'd still be doing more than most people. You need to take care of yourself. You need to say no. Maybe it's not always important to come in and build a giant program. You know, if you're not being supported in the way that you need to be, like maybe there are ways, Liz, for you to do um, the things that are important to you, like art making with people in general, and teaching art making. Like maybe those can be separated. You can do that in the community. There are ways for this to be more fulfilling and less draining on you. So I am incredibly protective. I sat down with one of my admin one time and I said, I don't care about your rules. I said,
Oh,
I have
I'm
I have
intrigued.
3 priorities when I come into my classroom. The first one is myself. The second one is my students. The third one is the content. Um, if what you're asking me to do is going to impede the success of any 3 of those things, I am not going to do it.
Wow. What stuck with me from your rankings was number 1. You at number 1. I think as teachers often we forget ourselves and our wellness in this process. It's all about the students, the content,
Yeah.
the test scores, depending on your subject or however you're assessed. We really take ourselves out of the equation, which I think can lead to burnout and other
It's
bad
bad.
outcomes.
It's bad. And
Wow.
this is not an easy job to have, like, to make it to retirement, right? So you have to
No.
do what you have to do, and you have to believe also that you're a badass teacher enough that when you say something like that, they know and they're like, okay, we got her number now, you know, and
Yeah, we
we
know it.
understand like what,
Right.
like, and sometimes it is a battle, you know, to be understood by your admin or by other teachers or even by students. Like, you know, setting up boundaries with students was probably the hardest thing and still continues to be the hardest thing for me, right? Getting teenagers to respect boundaries in general is really hard. like, but it's something that they
that
need to
frontal
learn how to
lobe
do,
we
you
spoke
know?
about. Yes, yes,
Yeah. So
exactly.
yeah, I'm a different teacher than what I started out as, for sure.
Wow. Wow. Well, I
Yeah.
want to stick on the subject of teaching and campuses, and I really want to dig into, I would imagine, the juxtaposition between working at a rural high school in Marana to now being in the heart of Tucson at the infamous Tucson High School. But I want to kind of center it around this question, Liz. So obviously, we know that Black educators are 4% of Arizona's teacher workforce. Talk to us about the process of finding community on the campuses you've taught at.
So I was lucky at Marana to have you and to have, a couple of other educators, one of which is like my best friend. We left at the same time, Um, and honestly, like I don't think we talk about what happened to teachers during the pandemic enough. Um, but also collectively as a society, we've just kind of moved on, but that trauma hasn't. It's still there. Um, so finding finding teachers that you can bond and feel safe with is very difficult when you are like one of three Black people in the room. Um, I found community with you. I found it with Tina Lieberman, who was the photography teacher at the time. And honestly, like that's what got me through the pandemic and, subsequently the years after. Um, but it's not easy. And as an art educator, it can be even more difficult, especially if there's only a few of you. Sometimes there's only one. Um, to find somebody who's on the same page, who's like as interested in teaching social justice through art and contemporary methodology. So one of the things that I did my first year is I applied to there's a nonprofit called Art 21 is very famous. They profile artists. They're a great resource for any art educators that are out there, art21.org. They have an educators institute in New York at Columbia. And you can apply. And I did. And I found this community of artists and educators, like internationally. Like some of them were from other countries, and I spent this week with them during the summer, learning from them, learning from other amazing artists out in New York. And then we had a cohort year round. So that's all to say is that I did feel very isolated at Marana out in the middle of the desert. But there are ways to find community if you can't find them on your campus, and I would encourage other Black educators and educators of color, um, queer educators. There are these kind of groups and places, sometimes within your own subject, that are that you can connect to. I mean, I see them on Instagram a lot too. Like they have communities. And I don't think there's anything wrong with you starting your own, right? So if you're in a district where you're feeling very by yourself, if you're in a school that's you feel by yourself, reach out to other schools and create your own community. Um, and, be judicious about who you bring into it.
Yeah. How's the process been now transitioning to Tucson Unified School District, the largest in the city, being at Tucson High? Obviously, a major shift in terms of staff
Yeah.
diversity and student diversity. And again, you're not out with tumbleweeds, and you're right next.
There's no cows on the road.
Right. In case each has its own charm. But in case anyone isn't familiar with Tucson High, it is just right across the street from the University of Arizona. So just a central hub of activity, of brilliance, of young people and great educators. So making the transition to TUSD, has that process of finding community or simply just finding folks on your campus, whether it's in the arts or other subjects that you really vibe with, has that felt more seamless? Are there still struggles, or is it just a completely different experience for all of these reasons?
I think so. The transition from Marana to Tucson High. So in Marana, there's always, when you're teaching in a place that is conservatively activated, and the community that the school is servicing can be extreme, right? And so there's always this kind of like cloud over you, like I'm going to teach Kara Walker's, miraculous sugar baby, but I'm always in the back of my head thinking, okay, waiting for that parent call, waiting for, like, to justify why this is important for students to learn about. That is not really the case at Tucson High. There are teachers doing incredible work there. Tucson High has about 3,500 kids, and maybe, I think, close to 200 like certified staff. It might be 180. Like there's a lot of staff there, so it's easy to get lost. So it was like kind of that anxiousness around what I was teaching or around progressive education, or even like some of the things faculty said that were not cool, like that I don't necessarily have to deal with at Tucson High. It's a more progressive, TUSD is a huge district, and they're doing a lot. So there's a lot that they're doing really right. But because the school is so large, you can feel a little isolated. I mean, I pretty much am in my wing. Like this, if you've ever seen Tucson High's campus, it looks like a college. It's very large. And but I do have two other art educators that we make up the visual arts department, and I feel seen and in community with them. And with the CTE department there, which is amazing. Like that, their visual arts wing does so much, and they're fun people. So I've really been able to get to know the people on my wing also. The third floor visual arts department. So that's been really great. But there, as far as like my, how do I say this? My challenges as a Black art educator have not changed really, as far as like being the only person in the room. There is still a handful of Black educators at Tucson High, certified ones. There's like maybe 2 handfuls of Black staff. They're across the board in Arizona. I've heard from everybody in different places I've worked, there's a lack of understanding about what Black educators need, and how things might impact them. So like, for instance, across campuses, there's a lot of use of the N-word colloquially, and like just dropping it. I hear it multiple times a day. For my colleagues, it's not pleasant to hear that either, but it doesn't affect them the same way as it affects me. There are these like kind of nuanced things that, if you are not a Black educator, you're not picking up on. You're not seeing you're not seeing what we're seeing. And also just the feeling of having another educator see you, see what you're doing, who is Black. You know, Black folks are not only 4% of the teaching population, but 4% of the Arizona population, right? We are definitely a minority. And the school demographics aren't necessarily that different from Marana. You know, the vast majority of our students are white and Hispanic, and then, you know, it decreases from there. Tucson High is a Title I school, so there's more diversity of class, I think, than maybe in Marana. Although Marana's pretty diverse too, to be honest.
Yeah.
We had some. So
Mhm.
I don't know, all those things factor in. And so, like, I'm more interested in how do we have more Black educators? How do we have, like, nationwide? Because we know that we're also a small percentage nationwide of educators, you know? Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
No, that does, Liz, and that absolutely does. I want to ask you, so what keeps you in education? Because I think you mentioned the pandemic being this really seminal moment in your teaching career, and exposing, I think, even for students, but certainly for staff, like you said, particularly for Black staff. It was just a really difficult time. And I don't know that we've taken the opportunity to really unpack and check in with each other following. It was like, okay, hey, we don't have to wear masks anymore. Everyone can come back. We can have assemblies. Let's let's get it, right? Everyone loves
Right.
assemblies. But thinking about them, and speaking from personal experience, frankly, thinking about the exodus that we've seen of teachers leaving the classroom in the years since the pandemic, what keeps Miss Denneau in education in the classroom?
Teaching is something I'm really good at. That comes naturally to me. And mostly because I feel like I know how to talk to kids, of all ages, really, but um, mostly teenagers. Um, and I have a level of respect for them that is just kind of automatic because I've been a teenager that went through some really rough times. Um, but to be perfectly honest, and to anybody who's watching this and thinking about becoming a teacher, and, like, you know, the pay isn't great. No. There's a lot of like, a lot of requirements, like a lot of things that are required of you. It can be incredibly stressful. You're dealing with humans. You're dealing with developing humans, and then you're dealing with those humans' parents who are just desperately wanting the best for them, right? And so there's a lot of emotions entangled in that. Um, but one of the reasons why I'm still in education is because education is one of the few jobs that affords me the time to still be a practicing artist. And it is not easy because, as you know, Tyler, at the end of the day, sometimes you just want to crawl into bed. You don't want to go down to your studio and make art, right? But there aren't a lot of jobs that I can go to and say, hey, I got a month-long residency at, you know, whatever institution, and I'll be gone. And they'll be, you
I'll see
know,
you in a
like,
month.
see you in a month.
Don't
No.
ask about me. I'll be back. I'll tell
Don't,
you all
I
about
don't
it.
know.
I'll tell
Yeah.
you all about it when I get
Yeah,
back.
exactly. That doesn't work. But I get, you know, I don't like saying summer's off because we're not paid for the summer. That's a
No,
misconception people have. But
no. And we know how it works. We end up going back weeks,
yeah.
sometimes weeks before the
Oh
first
my
day.
gosh, it seems like
After July
earlier
4th.
every year. Every year
Yes.
it's earlier. I'm like,
Too
why are we
too early.
starting so early? um, so that's why I stay. One, because
Mhm,
I'm good at it.
mhm.
Two, because in the arts, I get to teach kids how to develop an artistic practice, a practice of creativity, whether or not they're going to go into the arts, right? But if you create a creative practice, whatever it is, it'll sustain you. The arts are important. I'm not like anybody who's arguing that they're frivolous and not important, hasn't picked up a history book, whatever. But like,
it's probably not our target audience.
no,
Right?
no,
They're probably
I'm not
not.
gonna.
They're probably not tuning in. And if they are, they need to check themselves.
Yeah, they need to check themselves. Especially,
come on now.
Black artistry is huge, and it's missing from our history, right? It's missing from all of these, just like our Black scientists and all those things. But there is a huge contribution, especially in America, that Black artists have made, that Mexican artists have made, that Chinese and Vietnamese and all these artists have made that are untold. And I have those students in my classroom, and their history is not being told to them. So I have this awesome platform to introduce them to their history. And in a way that the thing about art is that it's more accessible than maybe a math problem, right? It's an emotional connection, as well as an analytical one, as well as a symbolic one. It's all those things, but it's something that they can grab hold of, and you don't have to have a master's degree to do it. So like, that's what keeps me in the classroom, but it fits for my life. And, public loan service forgiveness is a good thing.
It's a very good, listen, it's a very good thing. We gotta utilize our resources.
Keep it up, guys. 10 years. You got this.
Yes. Liz, you have already dropped so much game on us. Thank you for being here. I think it's about that time. We're going to jump into the final portion of this episode. We call it our exit ticket.
Oh, no.
I hope you're ready.
I'm dead.
So here, it's our exit ticket, okay?
Okay.
So
do you have your SMART goals on the board?
I do not have my SMART goals. No administrator asked for them, so I am not going to provide them today. But I do. You're amazing. I miss you. I do have a series of 3 prompts, really 3 questions for you. And here are my only instructions.
Okay.
You can only choose one.
Okay.
First, you can only choose one dance: the wobble or the Cupid shuffle.
I like the Cupid shuffle.
Really? I thought you were gonna go the wobble. You remember we were at that TUSD African American student kickoff?
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure the wobble came on.
Yeah.
And I saw you hitting the wobble, and the students were like, "Go, Miss D, go, Miss D." So this isn't just a random question on a Black podcast.
Probably
this is rooted in a memory I have with you from, I don't know, 2019.
I'm sorry, I screwed that up for you. No, I don't.
You going with the Cupid? Okay, I'm not mad.
You know why? Because it reminds me of like old school step-in music a little bit. Because it's like Electric Slide. Remember, I am Gen X.
Electric Slide, yes. So if I put Electric Slide on here, would you have chosen that over Cupid?
Yeah, I would have. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
That's my generation, yo.
I got you. We're gonna go with 2 more. Sticking with music for this next one. This is gonna be all about Usher Raymond. This is one of my favorite questions on Earth. You remind me, you don't have to call, or you got it bad.
You remind me.
Wow. Why do you remind me? It's a good one.
You remind me of a girl that I once knew. Yes. I remember dancing to that.
It was the jam.
It was, yeah.
Okay.
And it was so nostalgic. He was like,
You can still play that song. You can still play any of these 3. And I think all of us are going to sing to it and dance to it.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
The man's got a catalog.
Yes, he does.
Final prompts for you before we get out of here. Jordan Peele, you can only choose one: Get Out, Us, or Nope?
Okay, so here's the deal with that, though. I have not.
Oh,
I'm gonna say Nope, one, because
okay.
it's sci-fi and it's fun,
Wow.
and the cinematography in that movie is next level. It feels like a surrealist painting to me. It feels very surreal. I have not seen I have not seen all of Get Out, and I have not seen Us. Respect. I lay my respect on Jordan. Here's the thing. I cannot see Lupita that cracked out. Like, it will mess me up. I think I don't want to hear her talk like that. I don't
She was a
that's
character.
that's my girl. And
She
I
did a
hear
thing.
she's amazing.
She is.
But it seemed a little too scary for
It
me.
was too
So I was
much.
yeah,
Okay.
and Get Out, I tried to watch and I just there's still some movies that I have not watched or I've tried, and it's just like it just activates every like anger button. Like I just get triggered and maybe because I feel like I know those white people too. So it's
Mm.
like,
You know, they would have voted for Obama for a third term.
I do you
But you see Nope. And
yes,
that's
I've
fitting,
seen
given
Nope.
given your art background. That actually, although I didn't expect that answer, that makes total sense because it's very abstract, it's very artful. Like you said, the cinematography, even the villain itself, by the end of the film, it looks
Yeah,
like
it's
a
like
we're
it
totally
looks like
spoiling
a
it. It looks like a
painting.
sculpture, yeah, or a
Yeah, in the
painting.
sky. Yeah, it's
Right,
really
right.
it's very artistic. Also, I love the tie-in of the first, shout out to the visual arts, the first moving picture, The Jockey.
Yes.
I discovered that
Yes.
in art school and
Oh,
learned that
wow.
story, and I was like, "Oh my god,
There it
another
is on the
thing
big
that we
screen.
didn't know." Yeah.
Wow. And you did mention Kiki Palmer at the beginning of
Yeah,
our
that's
conversation.
my
So
girl
this is
too.
coming really full circle. It's the Kiki
Full
Palmer
circle.
episode. I love it, Liz. Well, finally, what are the best ways to connect with you and support your work?
Okay, so you can find me on Instagram. I have two accounts. I have one that is just at Liz_Denneau that you see there on the screen. I also have another one that's Miss D_art class. And that's if you're interested in like some of the projects that I'm doing with my students, you can check those out. Um, if you're just curious about what's going on in the art room. You can email me if you've got questions. I love talking to other educators at elizabeth.deneau@gmail.com. Oh,
You are
and if you want to see my artwork, lizdeneau.com.
Look at that. She is everywhere. Liz, this was an absolute, it was a pleasure, it was an honor, it was a blast. I thank you so much for joining us. It was great to see you, to reconnect, to share your story. I know it's going to touch a lot of people, and I hope you all reach out to Liz. She's obviously a wealth of knowledge and just a really, really fantastic person. So, Liz, thank you so much for being here. We thank all of you for checking out this episode. You can follow us at 4AZ Teach. We appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next time.